All right, welcome to today's class. In today's class, we'll be dealing on binomial expansion of fractions and negative powers. Before we start, let's take a glimpse at what factorial is. What is a factorial? A factorial is a mathematical operation that multiplies every given positive integer by every positive integer below it down to 1. A factorial is a mathematical operation that multiplies every given positive integer by every positive integer below it down to 1. So if we say 4 factorial, what do we mean? 4 factorial means that 4 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 1. Also, 5 factorial means 5 multiplied by 4 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 2 and then multiplied by 1. That means that 5 factorial is equal to 5 multiplied by 4 factorial. All right, so in a situation where we have x plus y all raised to power n, where n is a negative or fractional term. How do we go about it? Here is a simple trick. Start with the first term raised to power n and then all over 0 factorial. The first term here is x raised to power n all over 0 factorial. And secondly, keep multiplying x by its previous power and then subtract 1 from the power as it goes. So we have plus, if you multiply x by n, it will give you n x raised to power n, and then subtract 1 from the power. So we have here minus 1 all over, keep increasing the denominator by 1. So we have 1 factorial. And then you attach y plus, you do the same thing for the next. You multiply x by its power and then subtract 1 from its power. So we have here n multiplies n minus 1 multiplies x. Raised to power n minus 1 and then minus 1 all over, you keep increasing the denominator by 1. So we have here 2 factorial. And also, you attach y. Now, as it goes on, the power of y increases by 1, just as the power of x decreases by 1. Here, the power of y is 1. So here, the power of y will become 2. And then plus, if you multiply x by its power, it will give you n minus 1. Now note that x raised to power n minus 1 is the same thing as x raised to power n minus 2, because minus 1 is minus 2. So we have here n minus 2 multiplies x. And then x is raised to power n minus 3. because n minus 2 minus 1 is n minus 3. So you attach y and then increase the power of y by 1. So we have here y raised to the power 3 all over, you increase the denominator by 1. So we have here 3 factorial and then plus, it goes on and on. Now, note this. You multiply x by its previous power and then subtract 1 from its power and also increase the power of the second term, which is y, by 1 as it goes. And finally, increase the denominator by 1, which we have done. So now let's take an example for proper understanding. Expand 2 plus b raised to the power negative 3 up to the third term. Here we are asked to expand 2 plus b raised to the power negative 3 up to the third term. So, solution. Our first task here is to identify the parameters given. Now, from the question, x, which is the first term, is equal to 2. And then y, which is the second term, is equal to b. And finally, n, which is the power, is equal to negative 3. So our next task is to substitute into the equation. Remember, x raised to the power n all over 0 factorial plus, if you multiply x by its power here, it will give you nx raised to the power n, and then subtract 1 from the power, we have minus 1 all over, increase the denominator by 1, so we have 1 factorial plus, if you multiply x by its power here, it will give you n multiplied by n minus 1 multiplied by x raised to the power. If you subtract 1 from the power of x, it will give you n minus 2 all over. If you increase the denominator by 1, it will give you 2 factorial. Oh, I forgot to add y here. So the power of y increases by 1. So the power of y here becomes 2. And then plus, if you multiply x by its power here, it would give you n multiplied by n minus 1 multiplied by n minus 2 multiplied by x raised to the power. If you subtract 1 from the power of x, it will give you n minus 3. And then attach y. The power of y increases by 1. So before we had y raised to the power 2. So here it will become y raised to the power 3. All over, increase the denominator by 1. Before we had 2 factorial. So here it will become 3 factorial. From the question, we are asked to stop at the third term. Expand 2 plus b raised to the power negative 3 up to the third term. So we've gotten to the third term here, which is 3 factorial. So now let's substitute n into the equation. So we have here x raised to the power negative 3 all over 0 factorial plus negative 3 multiplied by x raised to power negative 3 minus 1 and then y all over 1 factorial plus negative 3 multiplied by negative 3 minus 1 multiplied by x raised to power negative 3 minus 2 and then you attach y raised to power 2 all over 2 factorial and then plus negative 3 multiplied by negative 3 minus 1 multiplied by negative 3 minus 2. Attach x raised to power negative 3 minus 3 and then y raised to power 3. All over 3 factorial. So here we have x raised to power negative 3 all over 0 factorial is 1 and then minus, because plus and minus becomes minus. So minus 3x raised to power negative 4 because minus 3 minus 1 is negative 4. And then attach y all over 1 factorial is 1. And then plus negative 3 minus 1 is minus 4. Minus 4 multiplied by minus 3 gives us positive 12. That's why we have plus here. So 12x raised to power negative 5 and then y raised to power 2 all over 2 factorial is 2. And then minus negative 3 minus 1 is negative 4. Negative 4 multiplied by negative 3 is positive 12. And positive 12 multiplied by negative 5 is negative 60. So we have here negative 60. Attach x. X is raised to power what? Negative 3 minus 3 is negative 6. So we have here negative 6. And then y is raised to power 3 all over 3 factorial is 3 times 2 times 1. And 3 times 2 is 6. 6 times 1 is 6. So we have here 6. So we have x raised to power negative 3 minus 3x raised to power negative 4 and then y plus 12 divided by 2 is 6. So we have 6x raised to power negative 5 y raised to power 2 and then minus 60 divided by 6 is 10. So we have here 10x raised to power negative 6 and then y raised to power 3. All right, our next task is to put the values of x and y into the equation. Remember, from the question, x is given as 2 and then y is given as b. So if we substitute the values of x and y into the equation, we would have 2 raised to power negative 3 minus 3 multiplied by 2 raised to power negative 4, and then multiplied by b plus 6 multiplied by 2 raised to power negative 5 multiplied by b raised to power 2, and then minus 10 multiplied by 2 raised to power negative 6, and then b raised to power 3. All right, so 2 raised to power negative 3 is the same thing as 1 all over 2 raised to power 3 minus 3 multiplied by 2 raised to power negative 4 multiplied by b can be written as 3b all over 2 raised to power 4. In case you don't understand this, kindly watch my video on indices. I'll leave the link in the description below. We have here plus 6 multiplied by 2 raised to power negative 5 multiplied by b squared can be written as 6b raised to power 2 all over 2 raised to power 5, and then minus 10 multiplied by 2 multiplied by negative 6 multiplied by b raised to power 3 can be written as 10b raised to power 3 all over 2 raised to power 6. So this is our final answer.